Thank you, Mr Speaker. I move that the House acknowledge the passing on 30 January 2022 of the Senator the Honourable Michael Beahan, former Labor Senator for Western Australia and President of the Senate, and place on record its appreciation for his service to Australia and offer its heartfelt sympathy to his family in their bereavement. Mr Speaker, Michael Beahan's surname is Irish, derived from the Gaelic word Beahan. It means life. When Michael was 17, his family started a new life. Like so many others at the time, they left post-war Europe and embarked on the months-long journey, travelling from London to Perth, Australia. For young Michael, his new life in his new country took the shape of an electrical apprenticeship. He would work as an electrician for the next 10 years. Then sadly, tragedy struck. Michael was involved in an horrific traffic accident near Goomalling. His girlfriend, Leith, tragically died. There's a line in the Irish poem On Raglan Road by Patrick Kavanagh. It goes, "Let grief be a fallen leaf at the dawning of the day." And that was true for Michael. That terrible event affected him deeply. It set him on a new course to become a teacher. And active in the Teachers' Union, Michael joined the Australian Labor Party in 1968. And it was the beginning of a long contribution. Almost 2 decades later, in 1987, Michael was elected to the Senate by the people of Western Australia. In his first speech, there was a theme that followed him throughout his time there, and it was the theme about how we should treat each other in political discourse. In that speech, he admonished activists in the peace movement who believed they had the monopoly on principle and morality. He said, "You do not have to bleed to show that you have a heart. You do not have to pray to demonstrate the presence of a soul." Michael Beahan understood that two people with different views can respectfully disagree, and that having a different view doesn't make you more moral than the other person. As President of the Senate, one of his proudest achievements was introducing the art acquisition program. He didn't like that the Parliament's art collection was static, set in stone in 1988, and that the art collection was dominated by the artists of Sydney and Melbourne. So he set out for a collection that better reflected the country. He was proud of the fact that when he left here, there was Indigenous art from urban artists, and more art from Western Australia, the Northern Territory and Queensland. Mr Speaker, Michael Beahan admitted late in his parliamentary career, in fact it was the very last sitting day of his time in Parliament, that he had been elected to a Senate as a cynic. In his words, "I was no enthusiastic supporter of the Senate. I can understand that on some days, Mr Speaker. It was a view that had formed watching from afar the events of 1975, but it was a view that changed. In part, it was because of the committee system which he loved. You were forced together, working towards common goals, usually finding consensus, travelling together. Michael was very conscious that our debates draw out our best. Tone, civility, the hours we keep and our role in contributing to the type of citicism that he once himself had, it all matters," he said. And we all still grappling with those questions a quarter of a century on. Though I should add, Michael passionately argued for an end to wigs and gowns, and that change was achieved by his successor, so progress is indeed possible. Mr Speaker, Michael left the Parliament because he lost a pre-selection, defeated 71 to 69. It doesn't get much closer than that. But he didn't mope. In fact, the day after he ended his term as a senator, he married Margaret. A new stage of his life was beginning. Mr Speaker, Senator Beahan's was a life well lived, from London to Perth, Bunbury, Melbourne and Canberra. From devastation to the dawning of the day, he was a gentleman who wanted us to always be at our best. On behalf of the government, I offer my heartfelt sympathy to Michael's wife Margaret, his children and extended family, and may he rest in peace.
I give the call to the Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thanks, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for his words. If ever there was a face that looked like it had been designed to emit an aura of geniality and goodwill, it was Michael Beahan's. Through his life he would wear many hats: electrician, peace activist, teacher, union member, encourager, change maker, Labor true believer. He was also the survivor of tragedy, a car crash that he survived, but his girlfriend, Leith Jackson, did not. Even with the passage of the decades, it is just too awful to contemplate. Somehow the young Michael emerged from that with a sharpened focus on what mattered. As West Australian State Labor Secretary, he was a modernising force in the 1980s, played a crucial role in the party's successes at a state and federal level during that remarkable decade. When he entered federal parliament as senator for WA during the Hawke-Keating era, he made it clear in his first speech to the Senate that he was concerned with getting things done. Having overcome some of his own reservations about the Senate, which in his mind sometimes suffered from memories of its role in the 1975 constitutional crisis, he gave speeches on industrial relations and working conditions, education, the economy and electoral matters. He spoke with persuasive power on the Native Title Bill. He developed a full and detailed view of Parliament, seeing how it all pieced together what worked, what didn't, and what best equipped parliamentarians to serve the interests of the Australian people. True to this approach, he looked past some of the more flashily obvious aspects of Parliament and saw the value of parliamentary committees. What he saw in them was a greater breadth of representation and perspective, and an overall impact that he felt was rivalled only by the emergence of political parties and the advent of proportional representation. When he became Senate President, he took on the challenge of lifting the standard of question time, clearly taking to heart the view of another president, John F. Kennedy, that we choose things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Michael understood that the televising of question time had a big impact on the standing of the institution. As he put it, "I used to think it was only my mother who watched me at question time, but there are a lot of other people who watch question time. I was recently door knocking in Shark Bay when somebody said, 'Hello, Mr. President, come on in and have a drink. I watch you every day.'" Michael also understood the potent symbolism of this very building itself and sought ways to make Parliament House a living, dynamic building that better reflected our great nation. One way he approached this was through the art collection. As he later reflected, there was almost no Western Australian art, very little Queensland art, no urban Aboriginal art, and very little Northern Territory art. We set about redressing that imbalance, first of all, then maintaining the collection as a living collection and not one that was rooted in 1988. As you walk through this building, possibly on your way to Aussies, you'll pass Michael's official portrait, in which he has been carefully painted, smiling gently from among a collection of framed canvases. When he left here, Michael kept his focus on what mattered, favouring the result over the display. By the time he was appointed a member of the Order of Australia in 2011, it was for service to the Parliament of Australia, to the promotion of international bipartisan political debate, to the pharmacy profession and to the community. A £10 pom who turned out to be a true bargain for Australia. Our hearts go out to his wife Margaret, his children Daniel and Kate, his stepchildren Georgia and Michael, and his 8 grandchildren. May Michael rest in peace.
As a mark of respect to the memory of the Honourable Michael Eamon Bean, I ask all present to rise in their places. I thank the House.